Hi, Rob Smythe here. This is a contentious topic that's worth discussing. Adverbs. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? It's contentious because best-selling writers use them, editors hate them. But you have to submit your manuscript to an editor instead of to a best-selling writer. So it's probably a good idea to know why editors hate adverbs. The thinking is like this. If a verb needs an adverb, then it wasn't a good choice of verb in the first place. The adverbs are mostly the ly things like quickly, slowly, roughly, gently. I see quickly and slowly so much. How about she walked quickly into the room? Well, why not? She trotted, she raced, ran, she rushed, she dashed, she hurried. There's all sorts of verbs which stand for walked quickly, so we didn't need the adverb. I edited 3 stories today, and here are some of the adverbs I found. See if you think they're needed. The weather was incredibly cold. How about frigid? Wrapped tightly. How about bundled? He looked glaringly. Well, how about glared? You see, did we need those ly words? Did we need those adverbs? No. She passed him the cheese, and he smiled gratefully. Okay, he was thankful. But we could probably get it just from the he smiled. Perfectly arched eyebrows. If you hadn't had perfectly in there, would the reader think they were imperfectly arched eyebrows? He caressed my face gently. Would he have caressed your face roughly?
Editors wince at unnecessary adverbs after the word said. I love you, she said, amorously. I'm going to kill you, he said, threateningly. I'd like to see how this works, he said, curiously. I wish it weren't so, she said, dejectedly. I don't care either way, he said, matter-of-factly. Hallelujah, she shrieked, ecstatically. Do you think you need any of these adverbs?
There are a couple of adverbs that come up very often. There were 7 instances of this in the last short story I edited. It was suddenly. Suddenly the bomb exploded. Well, do bombs ever explode gradually? Or suddenly the phone rang. Do any phones not ring suddenly? Now, probably the author meant that the character was surprised by the sound of the phone. If that's the case, he could have said, John jumped at the sound of the ring. Be careful of the word suddenly. It's used so often, so unnecessarily. Here's another adverb that I see way too often, slightly. He was slightly angry. When I read this, I think that the writer might have chickened out. He wanted to make his character angry, but didn't want to make him too angry. So he said slightly angry. Of course, you could have said irritated or something like that. But this issue is a little deeper, this use of the word slightly. For drama, more is usually better than less. So you have to have a really good reason to minimize the emotion or the action by using the word slightly. Why not make it, he was damn angry? Or why not show it, of course, showing's better than telling. He slammed his fist on the table.
Here are some other examples of using slightly. His hair was slightly messy. He felt slightly nauseated. She had a slight cut on her hand. Isn't that too bad? He had slight misgivings. Well, what's wrong with having terrible misgivings? I see briefly used this way too, unnecessarily. Briefly, he hesitated, then went on. Do you need the briefly? And the last one set a new record, I thought. Briefly, he felt a tiny sliver of soreness. That's like Arnold Schwarzenegger complaining of a paper cut. The word little can be used as an adjective and an adverb, and is sometimes minimizing too. A little blood was seeping through the bandage. Why not a torrent? He tried a little harder. She was a little bit frustrated. I'm not saying you shouldn't use a little or any of the other minimizing adverbs and adjectives. If you want your character to try only a little harder, then go for it. Perhaps the big bad boss told him to work harder and your character complies, but only a token amount. But you should have a good reason to minimize, to deny yourself the opportunity to enhance the dramatic effect. Here's what I think is important to remember about using adverbs. Try not to use them to modify verbs. Instead, pick a better verb. Don't use them to describe how something was said. Instead, show a gesture or use more dramatic spoken words. Watch for, and seldom use, the word suddenly, and the minimizing words slightly, briefly, a tiny bit, a little, and their adjectival forms.